Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm going to start off with a few comments. One of them is just kind of funny, and the other ones, they're both kind of funny. You suck now. That's Somebody wrote a comment, and wow, Trump is really Trump. Wow, Trump is really really stupid. And so that's the title of my video. And I bet there are more comments. I should go look for them. I might add more comments later in the video because that's a title that would draw Trumpers in. But this person said the same thing. You're really, really stupid. Well, that person said, you suck now. This person said something different. You're really, really stupid. So I said Trump is stupid, and then they said, you're stupid. Trump's not stupid, you're stupid, right? This is the kicker, though. Too bad there's no vaccine for your gross TDS. Classic, just an amazing comment. Trump derangement syndrome. Now, I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. If anybody doesn't have it, it's me. Because I, used to like Trump for what he was. Like, I accepted him for what he was. And what he was somebody who pissed off the liberals and the liberal media and made a mockery of the presidency because he's a dope and he's obnoxious. And the presidency's a joke anyway. Like, I don't have some, oh my God, who's the president? So it's the president's so important. Like, I just don't, I don't buy into the whole system. I know the president is not the most powerful person in the world, not even close, is not even on the level of the most powerful people in the world, right? So maybe I have these, I do have these photos. If I can find them, I'll put them up. But it's, the hierarchy of the pyramid, the pyramidal structure. I'll find some of the images that there's just these different levels of shadow government and whatever it is, right? Wealth and power. And Trump's not in that club. You can tell by the way he acts, he's not in that club, but wants to be, right? As president, you're not in that club. You're a public figure. Anybody who's a public figure does not have the shadow power that you would have when you're not. You can give orders and you're not culpable for those orders. I mean, that's real power, where you can call up whoever it is and says, tell the president to do this or, force the president to do that, through markets and any number of people. The people who are, not held to account for what they do. And so there are families of power, all these things. And then there's real power, which is God, because nobody can, and not that God is even power, it's a kind of a misunderstanding of, God is almost the absence of power. But from all things, you can't live without God. Without God, you can do nothing. Like, God is the essence of all things, right? So, like a seed form in a sense, right? So, and all these people who have temporary power, it's an illusion. Whatever power you have in the material world, in the world of humans, is temporary. And all these people who are in power have to suffer huge humiliations and things. I mean, everybody has to suffer some of that in general, right? Just a lack of power, right? Being bullied is like a lack of power. Like being abused is a lack of power. Having cancer is a lack of power, right? You're dying is a lack of power. When your body gives out on you, when you lose your strength, all these things. Like, it's a, temporary, very temporary situation, life. And everything in it, right? Pain is temporary, pleasure is temporary, everything's, temporary. But for this person to want me to be vaccinated for Trump derangement syndrome is just, it's kind of great, but it's really sad, right? Because the desperation that's there to believe in a guy who's just a bozo. The guy has always been a bozo. When he says, I'm smart, when he calls himself smart, and then you listen to him talk, you're like, yeah, he's not smart. Like, he's stupid. And he's gotten stupider. But something happened here in this thing. I just made my last video this wasn't to the video. My last video was just becoming in half an hour. It's going to go up at 9. And my videos are all coming out at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And so it's 8:25 right now. And so this video that's about to come out with him with the president of South Africa, I mean, it's so bad. Like, Trump's stuff is just so bad. And it just turns out that one of Trump's biggest claims about these white farmers being killed is a complete and utter lie, which I'm going to show you in just a second. And so you have this this really dopey person, Trump, who makes these claims that turn out to be completely false. And then the Barbie truther, the fake Christian Barbie truther, comes out and doubles down on it. Because they can never admit, oh my God, I made a mistake. Because admitting the truth is complete idiocy, right? The truth is that he's a complete idiot. That, you can't make claims like this, like they're eating the dogs. What happened to the eating the dogs thing? If that was true, why isn't Trump talking about that now, right? Why isn't Trump talking about, the dogs being eaten? Why isn't Trump bragging about deporting all those dog-eating Haitians from that city of Springfield, most of those people are legal immigrants who are doing jobs that nobody else wants to do, because that happens where Americans lose, their population diminishes, and then they have jobs to fill that Americans don't want to do, so they bring in immigrants, is a big thing. And Trump would be bragging about how he's getting rid of those dog-eating, cat-eating MNFers, but he doesn't brag about it because it wasn't true. And he said that thing in the debate, condemning a whole bunch of people. That these, and something that was based in an internet post on fucking Facebook, right? Some woman lost her cat, and another woman said, I think it's those Haitians are eating the cats. And then the woman's cat showed up. And so the thing was completely debunked. And so I'm going to show you that. But, let me show you that. We'll come back to these Trumpers as I go through this. So here's the video here.
And it showed a road and...
So this is not... There isn't a person... A cross doesn't represent every person here. You would just get that from this thing, right? They put these crosses... well, I'll read the thing from you. It's from 5 years ago. So it's... these are all farm cars here. And there's this it's only it's about a death of 2 farmers. So it doesn't represent, and you can look at it, this doesn't represent every farmer. It's just a temporary thing that people are doing in solidarity or protest or whatever. Each cross represents a white farmer who was murdered in South Africa. So this is a bullshit post by a right-wing dope, by a Trumper, right, or by whoever it is, right? Some, white supremacist, white power type of person. This is the kind of shit that Trump looks at, and he could easily get the information vetted. He has a team of people, or he should have a team of people, that when he watched something on the internet, to make sure it's true before you go and make a fucking ass of yourself, right? Like the rest of us should be doing. When I say things here, very seldomly do I not check it out, or if I, unless it's some kind of goofy thing, but I don't announce it like it's fact, right? And so this person, he just is lying here. This Dr. Malouf. Each cross represents a white farmer who was murdered in South Africa. So he doesn't say it's from 5 years ago. He doesn't say, and he lies about it representing that. And Trump says it's true, and it's, if you're against it, you're fake news. If you debunk it, you're fake news. He doesn't go look into it, just like they're eating the dogs. And so this is...
crosses on either side of this road as hundreds, if not thousands, of vehicles.
It's just any person logically knows that this isn't... You got to be a moron to think this represents a dead white farmer. You got to be a fucking moron. And this is Trump's most
lined this road.
Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President?
No, I don't know anything about it. I just saw it and I believed a bunch of bullshit on the internet. Like, that's your fucking dopey-ass president.
No, I'd like to know where that is.
Now,
Trump goes out and says each cross represents a dead white farmer. Because that's what he read by that fucking stupid post, right? And this is, the opposite of being a truther. So I'll replay the clip of Trump after we get through this part, where he says it's like a graveyard. Like this is all, like the crosses represent a grave. It's silly. And so there's no burial site, and the road looks like any other. A new grain mill was built along one stretch where the crosses once briefly stood. What we found was a community shocked to find itself under the spotlight and the truth about the crosses that reveals much about the delicate balance of race relations in South Africa. Ryan Collier is a man who understands both. A farmer from South Africa community, it was the murder of his aunt and uncle, Glenn and Vita Rafferty, bludgeoned to death in their home 5 years ago, which led to the erection of the crosses. Their deaths at their farm by attackers who stole valuables from their home led to a public outcry by the farming community and the temporary planting of the crosses by the fellow Afrikaners to highlight their murders among those of other farmers who had been killed across South Africa. So the video that you guys are seeing, he tells, as we stand together by the roadside, happened along the section of road. So it happened 5 years ago, right? And, there are some farmers who are being killed there, which is a violent country. And it's, I got some other stuff to show you too after. I'll find the Trump thing. I got to go take something off of the TV. But here are the other headlines here. A check of Trump's false claims about Africa genocide. Of course, this is, that stuff there. Fact-checking Trump's Oval Office confrontation at Ramaphosa. And so this was the other article I showed you was from BBC and even The Guardian. Trump's evidence of South Africa white genocide contains images from Democratic Republic of Congo. So it's not only that, but some of these pictures here. Other images displayed by Trump's during meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa were false or misleading. So Trump got a bunch of shit that was wrong and showed it to everybody and tried to embarrass this guy like he was responsible. And, there's, well, let me go show you the Trump video here first. So this was widely debunked. And this is what I've been talking about, how you're making the fake news real. And every person who claims to be a part of the truth community should realize Trump's fucking all of us. Because he's posting bullshit stuff. See, the thing about the battle between independent news media or independent journalism, alternative media, and truther stuff is that the mainstream media just says whatever the government tells them to say. And they manufacture reality. Like there was an event that happened yesterday. You guys know what it was, a tragic event. And I was flipping through the channels, and this guy says, the manifesto, you got to read the manifesto. You know who writes manifestos? CIA and these other, intelligence community, not individual people. The manifesto of a disgruntled person who allegedly does a horrible thing. And so, there's all this fake stuff out there, like Trump pretending his fake assassination, which we'll get to in a moment. I'll show you some more stuff to do with that in a second here. And so, Trump pretends to be like a truther, but what he does, he's a QB, like, one of these QAnon people who are the worst kind of truthers, who take information like that guy, takes this video of these crosses. I assume that guy who posted that clip of the crosses on the internet said that each cross represents a white farmer. Just who made that up, like just whatever, made that up, or whatever, heard it from somebody else, or whatever it is trying to defend Trump and just manufacturing reality. And that's the opposite of being a truther. Trump is the opposite of being a fucking truther, right? Because this is what happens here. So you've been caught, like just with the dogs thing, and you've done damage. Like, when he said that they're eating dogs and cats, these Haitian immigrants that were invited into this community in Springfield, Ohio, where the mayor said to J.D. Vance, that didn't happen, don't say anything about it. It'll just cause civil unrest here, right? Where people in Springfield, Ohio, who are dumb Trumpers will go around now trying to kill Haitians who, what happened was there was like 80,000 people that lived there and like 20,000 people left. The population was reduced in this town, and they had jobs that needed to be filled, and a bunch of Haitians started to move in there, and they told other people about it. And, there was some tension and issues, but not like they weren't gang members or crime, related people. And most of them were legal immigrants, and a lot of them had moved there when Trump was president. It happened, started happening when Trump was president. So it wasn't under Biden. And Trump just made up some bullshit, right? Saw some internet posts, didn't fact check it, because he doesn't care if it's true or not. Anything that supports his story is, I went through this years ago when I made my first video that got 2 million views about Michelle Obama possibly being a dude. And, a lot of the coverage that I gave to it, where it was, there's something there. But I overstated my case because I wasn't, I didn't think about, when I look for evidence, like let's say I was saying that there was all these, what I was saying, all these, there's a lot of Hollywood actresses that kind of look manly. And if I was showing, if I was making that case, I would look for the pictures that supported that, the pictures where these possibly male women who might have been men looking more manly, but there are other pictures where they didn't look as manly, right? And so, and I started thinking about that, going, well, that's not like, you have to say that, right? If you have a point of view of something that you can't really prove, you can present it in a way like this is speculation and there's some evidence, but you can't game the evidence to support your position and call it fact and announce it like it's a fact. You can say, there's some evidence here, that this is speculation. And I started to, it wasn't about me, it was about my audience, right? When you have an audience of people, you're responsible to give them the most factual information. You're responsible to present truthful information, right? And so if you make a mistake, then you have to rectify it in some way, right? You just say, whatever it is. You're going to make mistakes. But, his mistakes are much worse than anything I would make because he's really playing to people's fears, where I'm just like, the system's collapsing anyway. Like, this is just evidence of the collapse. And so, like, anything I got wrong or right doesn't really matter because it's just, we can all see the system collapsing in front of us, right? And I don't have a call to action other than finding the divinity within you, which is up to you to choose to do. It's not something someone can, force you to do. Where Trump is, he's got his dopey people that might go out and act in some way based in Trump's bullshit, right? He's not a trustworthy person. He's a fucking grifter and a liar. And so watch this here.
A video that he said showed more than 1,000 burial sites of white South Africans that he said were murdered. We know that that was not true and that the video wasn't showing that. So I wonder, why did the president choose to show that? What's not true, Yamiche? It's not true. The video was showing a burial site. It is unsubstantiated that that's the case.
No, it is true that video showed the crosses that represent.
Which is what the president claimed.
The video showed images of crosses in South Africa about white farmers who have been killed and politically persecuted because of the color of their skin.
So we now know that they were robbed, right? This was a robbery. And it may or may not had something to do with the color of their skin. But it was only 2 farmers. And so this was a crime that happened 5 years ago. Certainly not what Trump was trying to present, right? Like and it was over dramatic shit with the crosses that are gone now. They've built a mill there since. Like where they filmed this, these farmers were coming together in solidarity for an issue, the violence in a violent country. That used to be only whites towards blacks, but now it's blacks towards whites and whites towards blacks, right? And black on black crime. So, there's violence across the board.
Those crosses are representing their lives. Those crosses are representing their lives in the fact that they are now dead and their government did nothing.
It represents their lives and they're now dead.
About it. Are you disputing that there's no...
The fact that the video showed what the president claimed it showed, because it did not show that. But even more, what I'm asking you is who at the White House...
No, it did show that. It showed...
She's so emotionally manipulative with her victim consciousness. Like, all of a sudden you give a shit about people dying when you're not talking about this, like with, say, Palestine, where it's much worse. It's happening in the moment. Trump's supporting it. America's been supporting Israel doing this shit for years. All those things. Like, you're not, and any number of things that are happening. Like, you only care about certain deaths. You only care about, like, when Biden droned 8 children in Afghanistan and 12 total civilians on this bullshit ISIS-K thing he made up. Joe Biden, when they were leaving Afghanistan, he was trying to change the narrative. And the Republicans only focus on the service people, American servicemen who were killed. When, Biden droned kids with their Afghani kids. And it was a good talking point, but they never even thought about it, using it. They thought about the soldier stuff because they didn't think people would give a shit about 8 Afghani kids. They're supporters. They're dopey Trump supporters. American soldiers being killed as Biden debacle of withdrawing from Afghanistan, which Trump didn't do because Trump would have had the same problem. Like, Trump had 4 years to get everyone out of Afghanistan. He didn't. It was left to Biden. And so, it's just so greasy. When you use, like, victim consciousness and death stuff, that event that I'm talking about with the manifesto, it's always about victim consciousness. You saying that victimization has happened, therefore we get to do something, right? And, these people are being victimized, but, like, it's happening everywhere. And Trump is, the shit that he's doing with some of the immigration stuff, and, it's inhuman, it's inhumane. And across the board, the support he had for Israel, all these other things, taking Greenland away from Denmark, all the bullshit that he's pulling. The tariffs that will cause widespread, poverty and starvation amongst children in countries all around the world. Like, his actions have horrific effects. Tariffs are, in many ways, like economic sanctions. And they get caught bullshitting. Like, he got caught lying. Like, he's just not being thoughtful, not being curious, not making sure what he's saying is correct, factually. And this, this fake cheerleading MNFer here is doubling down on it and getting, like, defensive in a way, instead of being, this guy's a fucking dope. He says shit that he reads on the internet and announces like it's fact, and embarrassing himself while he's trying to humiliate a leader that's coming for an economic deal that you guys are supposed to be negotiating about shit that is not even true. It's fake internet shit. Farmers are dying there, white farmers, black people, but there's a lot more white farmers because white population. I have a clip that I have to take off the TV, and so we'll see in a second. But it's 9% of the population in South Africa is white, and they own 70% of the land. So in a country that is, the indigenous people are black, right?
white crosses representing people who have perished because of racial persecution.
Verifies the videos that the president shows, and what protocols are in place when there's unsubstantiated information being put out for the world and world leaders to
Yamiche,
show?
what's unsubstantiated about the video? The video shows crosses that represent the dead bodies of people who were racially persecuted by their government.
It doesn't represent. I mean, there was 2 people and other people around the country. And so it's a fucking bullshit thing. The people themselves didn't think this would be a global story. Like there's some clip that some dope put on the internet and said it's happened recently. Was this guy who was a president even a president then? And so, I mean, if you did that for, let's say, 2 white people got killed in America, which happens on a probably daily basis, and you put crosses there and say it was racially motivated, and that each cross represented death, that's incorrect, right? Like there was some violence going on in the farming community in South Africa, including the stuff that happened to this guy's aunt and uncle, in this area. And, they did a little vigil because it was, whatever people that were aware of this. And, it's something, but it's not what you guys said it was. It's not even close. And you've been caught. And, again, it shows if you get caught lying and you just get aggressive, then you're a shitty government, like you're a shitty person. You're not a truther. Trump's not a fucking truther. And all his people that follow him are not truthers. Because obvious shit is there that he's a lying piece of shit and that he's doing bad things based in shitty information. And he lies to his people all the time. Emotionally gets them going like he did on January 6th. And all these, he's not responsible. And then when it goes south, he disowns those people. He disavows them. He's a disloyal on top of it because he sets up his people. He's using his fucking people, he's an elitist who gets the rabble going. And then, all the fake shit that happened with January 6th. And then Trump's like disavows all the stuff saying, I don't know, I didn't stop him. And then he comes back around 4 years later and pardons them all. But he, after he, like when he got them all going, he brought them up to Capitol Hill and told them to march down to Capitol Hill, and bad shit happened. He set them up, and there was, they were waiting. He fell into a trap. They had already set a trap for it, and he walked his people into that trap, and then he bailed on him. He turned his back on him and said, "Fuck them." After he, he just thought of himself because he's that kind of weak piece of shit, right? Who makes shit up and then doesn't, hold himself accountable for his rhetoric, right? It's just, and then her coming out and getting aggressive with this woman, you've been caught, lying, and you're a lying piece of shit, and then you're just hoping that your people don't look at any other alternative opinion about what's going on, or doesn't look at the facts in this case, right?
In fact, the Associated Press, of all places, has a picture of that very monument, and the caption from the Associated Press is, "Each cross marks a white farmer who has been killed in a farm murder." So it is...
That's not the Associated Press. That doesn't, that's not what it fucking represents, right? You think they counted all those crosses and said, all right, we've had this many white murders? It was 5 years ago, and it's just fucking just silly. It's just a dramatic, and the crosses is what's going to get Trump's people going, right? And so, the truth is there to be found. I mean, the Reuters, which is the Associated Press, they're both owned by the Rothschilds. Fuck. And so...
It's substantiated, not just by that video.
But Reuters is one of the things I read there,
and the physical evidence that everybody saw on display in the Oval Office, but also by another outlet in this room, the Associated Press. So you should take it up with them if you believe the claim is unsubstantiated.
It's totally unsubstantiated, which It's fucking there's just a long list of... Here, let me show you. So then they get to do this, because we know these news sites suck. If you're a person in the truth community, you've been seeing the fake narratives. And when Trump does something like this, and they can fact check him and embarrass the whole right-wing truth community and all of us, saying, look, you guys just say unsubstantiated things. the mainstream media is better than the fake news media, which is truther media. So Trump fucks all of us, right? But here's all the different, doesn't show burial site, all the things he said. Trump showed old videos, took crosses out of context in South African genocide. They all get to say this all around the world. BBC, France, Axios, The Guardian, New York Times was above, right? This is all those things, right? This is just tons of these things, right? They're all posting this now because Trump fucking doesn't think about, asking people to vet what he's saying. He doesn't feel responsible to tell the truth to you. And he's really lying to Trump supporters more than anybody else. He's fucking all of us in the truth community, but he's really screwing over his dopey supporters who he's giving bad information to. When you give bad information to people, manipulative information, and, he's lying to you, not to the, other people know Trump's full of shit. They're not, he's screwing over South African leadership and the country and, all of that shit.
Now this is very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites.
You think they buried people on the side of fucking highway? You think they buried people 4 feet apart, all on the side of the highway, all with the same crosses? They're no identifying mark. Like, that's the stupid ass thing to say, right? That these crosses that he's showing, I'll show the picture in a second. But what he's saying is it's a burial site. That all, like he doesn't know that when you drive by a highway and somebody dies there and their family puts crosses there where they died and flowers, that's not where they buried them. That's a fucking, that's a state road or a federal highway. And it's not a place that's zoned for burial sites. When you see some crosses and flowers on the side of a road, you don't go, oh my God, there's a grave there. It's not a burial site. It's fucking 2 feet from the side of the road, right? Some drunk could walk by and fucking clip all those crosses. I mean, then you think everybody there in South Africa, they only get one cross with no identifying, nothing to identify it? Like, that's just fucking silly. It's fucking really, I didn't see the video till today. I didn't know how stupid this was, right? Like, he's just a complete moron. Like, listen to this fucking dumbass motherfucker, right?
Sites right here.
Burial sites. Go back here.
Very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers.
Over 1,000. There's over 1,000 people buried on the side of the road.
And those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross. And there's approximately 1,000 of them.
1,000 of them, I don't know. Looks like about 1,000.
White farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight.
None of that stuff is true, right? Like, none of that stuff is true. And I knew it was bullshit before, but I didn't see the video. Like, I didn't know what's going on there. I mean, I kind of got an idea from what he was saying. But, like, it's not true. Like, there's just no way that's true. I mean, just looking at it. Like, common sense should make you say, I'll go back to the video in a second. Let me finish up here.
Never seen anything like it.
I mean, yeah, because it's just I've never seen anything like it.
Both sides of the road, you have crosses.
And there's burial sites. There's bodies on each side of the fucking highway. He says it's a burial site. Like, fucking, like the R word? Like, look at the guy here. Like, what the fuck? He's like, what the fuck you talking about? Like, what about the people in there? Like J.D. Vance.
Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? No, I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen.
I have no idea where it is. So somebody posted a video that claims it's in South Africa. You claim those crosses are where graves are. It's a burial site. Like fucking, like a moron.
was in South Africa. That's what.
Oh yeah, 5 years ago, not a burial site. You got pretty much everything wrong, and you could easily ask somebody to fact check it before you fucking roll it out in front of people. Like, I would be embarrassed to post something like that. Like, I'd be like, oh my God. And my videos are like non-consequential, like what I do here. Like if I posted something like that and claimed like all the things he's claiming, when I look at something like that, I'm like, this is bullshit. At some point I realized there was a lot of stuff in the truth community that was being put out, which just was disinformation. There's thousands of, hundreds of thousands of different information agents that were working for the government and corporations, and they just put out disinformation, and people would buy into it and share it and make us all look stupid. Like a lot of people do that. A lot of prominent truthers, they don't fact check things. And, you should say, like, you hear me say it all the time, I don't know if this is even real. Like, I don't even know if this is the deep fake video. I mean, anything that I show here, it's just shit that I'm seeing on the internet. I'm not physically there. And, I take it with a grain of salt. And this is a comedy channel because I can't go and prove or disprove any of these things. And, on the bigger scale, we're living all in an illusion. And Trump is being emotionally manipulative about this, right? Like how emotionally gruesy he's being.
We need to find out.
Those people.
Okay.
And a lot of these things aren't from South Africa. That's what that other article said. So he showed him a bunch of shit and didn't get it verified before he did it. He rolls it out there as a press conference. Everybody sees it. He gets caught lying, and his, C-word, fake Christian Barbie, not Christian, where is it Christian, comes out and doubles down and lies about it. Like it's fucking obscene. It's obscene. And then dopey people write to me, these dopey Trumpers, and they're like, you're stupid. He's not stupid. You're stupid. You should get vaccinated. You hope there's a vaccinated for your TDS. Yeah, okay. I think you've probably taken some. You got Operation Warp Speeded. You brain dead fucks, right? Like this is so bad, so embarrassing. Like the Trump movement, the Trumpers, like everybody who claims to be a truther in whatever regard, people who are looking for a deeper level of truth than the bullshit that you get from mainstream media and history and the whole thing, this show, this illusion that they've created, and you want to know more, you want to know the truth. Well, Trump isn't going to tell you that truth. Like Trump has used the truth community and the narratives and things, but he's worse bullshitter than anybody. Like mainstream media doesn't put out the stuff that this sloppy. Trump, this is sloppy. Trump is sloppy, right? Like it's just like it's really sloppy. Let's look at that video.
Mr. President, the Pentagon.
And so so let's go back to that thing, the original one here.
Very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000.
Over 1,000 burial sites. Okay, so you look at these crosses. He thinks this is a burial site. He called that a burial site, right? Look at these. Like he thinks that each one of these crosses represents a white farmer. They just decide to bury them all by the side of the fucking road. Like you ever hear anything stupider than that? He's watching this video and he's saying this to a room full of college educated, some of them PhD level, I mean all of them are people with a higher, they're not as dopey supporters, right, who are double digit IQ people, which, I mean many of them. And he's saying that these are this is a great burial site. And he doubled down and said something more about it later. He said, Like that's I don't know what you call it, a grave site. You know, these are obviously just put there temporarily. Like you know, these you don't put a cross up like this. And it was 5 years ago, which he should say, but he doesn't know any of that. He saw the video and he took whatever he saw as fact, and he calls mainstream media fake news. Like, these are people who are whatever they're doing here in some rural area, but he thinks there's people buried here. He thinks that they just took all these people and buried them on the side of the road with some nondescript cross. These crosses are there's not even enough room for a grave there between the crosses. The graves would be like you'd have to dig one giant hole and lay these people in there. I mean, the effort that these people put in there, where they got all these crosses from, shows that they have a lot more money in a helicopter and these vehicles than the average person who gets killed, in the country, some really poor people. This is just silly, right? So, any other politician, even Joe Biden, who is completely a dope, he has people around him. This is why you have handlers and you have people, a team of people, to make sure you don't embarrass yourself. This is embarrassing. Trump doesn't get embarrassed by his fucking getting caught and they just say, oh, you got TDS. This woman saying you could get vaccinated for TDS. Anybody who disagrees with Trump has TDS. Anybody who criticizes him or fact checks him, oh, you just got TDS. Is there any bigger cult in the world than the cult of Trump, right? Like, that's what cults say. And so this is just silly. And if you were a person who was going to post something like this, you would say, where is it from? Is this really from South Africa? Because I'm not going to take somebody's Twitter post as fact. Is this really from South Africa? The fake Barbie truther saying, the Associated Press verified this, which I'm sure they just posted the video. I don't think that's verification. Like, I don't know what she's even saying there, but they banned the Associated Press because they wouldn't say they wouldn't say Gulf of America, right? And they were hammering the Associated Press as fake news, and now all of a sudden they're like, it's real news, right? And so, so you'd say, where is it from? Is this really South Africa? And what is it about? When did it happen? 5 years ago. So it is in South Africa. Okay, what do the crosses really represent? It's not a grave site. Like, Trump's so fucking stupid he thought this was a grave site. Like, he just made that shit up. That they buried all these fucking people. Well, let's just throw them by the fucking highway. Let's just dig graves and put them by the highway. And so we can, nondescript graves so that you can't go to your own grandmother's gravesite. What do you think happened here, right? Like, it's obviously some sort of symbolic thing that's going on. And each cross doesn't represent, this appeals to his right-wing Christian farmer, rural people who would be outraged by these crosses. But all those people would be smart enough to know that each one of these crosses doesn't represent a gravesite. And that poor South African president has to, lick Trump's taint and sit there and not call bullshit on this. He's like, where's this from? I've never seen this. Like, he's never seen this in his own country. Maybe that should have given you a fucking clue, right? That this would be something that, doesn't represent what you think it does. Like, I don't even know when this guy became president. But this thing that happened is a representation of something. It isn't even news in South Africa. Right? It's silly. It's fucking silly, fucking right-wing bullshit stuff that's posted on the internet. And Trump runs with it without, it just take somebody 5 minutes to figure out what this is from and say, yeah, don't run this. Just like, when J.D. Vance called up the mayor of Springfield, Ohio and says, is this true? And he said, no. And Trump said, oh, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. He just made that shit up, right? And then doesn't, apologize for misrepresenting the truth to his people, to the people who believe in him. And they don't, look into this guy going, he lies all the time. You got to take everything he says with a grain of salt. He's a fucking habitual liar, right? Like, he just, he can't help himself. He thinks everything he says is truth. And he doesn't, feel, bad about it. Just embarrassed about it, right? This is fucking embarrassing. Grave sites, right? These are all grave sites.
Very bad. These are burial sites right here. Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers. Those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross. And there's approximately 1,000 of them, white farmers, the family of white farmers. And those cars aren't driving, they're stopped there to pay respects to their family member who was killed. And it's a terrible sight.
You know, he knows basically nothing about this, and yet he's like sitting there talking about it like he's an expert of what's going on. He's just like announcing, like he saw one little post about it and then, didn't do anything in terms of, you have to debunk shit on the internet. Like he's the guy who's always saying fake news. And if you're going to talk about the mainstream media being fake news, then you have to be real news. You have to be better than them. And he's worse, right? He's making them look good. Case in point, here is a woman who used to be the former ambassador to South Africa. Now she's a part of that, Zygmunt Brzezinski, Mika Brzezinski's dad's created Council on Foreign Relations, one of the most controlling, controller organizations out there, the Council on Foreign Relations. And she's a part of that, and she gets to come out and talk truth on the news. I copied this clip off the news here. Not the news, CNN. Like, I'm even calling it the news because Trump's been so bad. Here's the clip.
With us, your reaction to Donald Trump's attempted ambush yesterday and calling these claims of genocide of white South Africans sort of the opposite of apartheid, and even using the word genocide in that discussion.
Yeah, I thought it was unfortunate from the point of view of Cyril Ramaphosa came to the United States into that Oval Office visit very clearly with an agenda to try to reset U.S.-South Africa relations, which are extremely important, not only to the continent, but for the world and for America, and President Trump's agenda of trying to make Americans more prosperous. As President Ramaphosa said in his meeting, over 600 American companies are invested in South Africa. That's where the majority of American companies invest in sub-Saharan Africa. And so from the point of view of trying to have a very serious discussion about the wide of issues that are part of our bilateral relationship, to actually focus on false claims of genocide against white South African farmers was, I think, an opportunity missed, and certainly one that was made for the cameras, but not made for serious diplomacy.
And we should say that the South African delegation came here in the hope that they would be having a discussion about trade. The president also accused the current government of confiscating land, pointing to a law that the New York Times says, quote, has not been used to seize any land, but some white South Africans and Mr. Trump say it unfairly targets farmers who remain mostly white decades after apartheid policies. Ambassador, can you explain more about what Donald Trump is saying and what is the reality in terms of these laws, and help us put that into context in terms of who owns, land, and what the population, the makeup of the population, and the disparities, the vast disparities there?
Sure. South Africa, I think the historical context matters quite a lot, and I wish that President Trump's team would have provided that information for him.
So that's very generous, right? Like, he doesn't have a team that provides information for him that's like real information or fact checks anything. Like, he never gets fact checked. They don't fact check his shit. And I bet they're scared to come to him and say, this is bullshit. He's like, what, you guys, fake news, fake news. Because he's really suffering mentally, I think. Like, I think he's deteriorating. Not as bad as Joe Biden, but in a different way. And I think he's just so insulated. But anyway, it's generous for her to think that he has a team that does that, right?
The 1913 Native Lands Act basically took 72%, or took the land from Black people, African people, and only allowed them to have 7% of the land. and gave the other 93% for white settlement. And these people were moved off of their land in very violent ways. They were dispossessed of their land and not allowed to own land or even rent land in South Africa. Today, 72% of the land is still held in the hands of white South Africans, and black South Africans only hold 9.22% or so of that land. And so, again, the land, just the distribution of land continues to be favored for white people disproportionately. And if you look at the population of South Africa, 79% of that population is black and only 9% is white, but yet whites own so much more, 72% of the land. And so the idea that they're being dispossessed of the land, I think, is really turning history on its head.
Okay, so sitting at home in my room with my computer and knowing that all history is bullshit, like at some level it's bullshit. You know, there are historical events, but they're completely subjective. And over time, history gets distorted. But, you know, and I can go Google or have the AI tell me exactly, you know, what's the population breakdown of South Africa. And, you know, it'd certainly be more accurate than what Trump is putting out there. But you can make a case that that's, you know, subjected to the powers that be. I mean, you can always say everything's a fucking lie because this whole thing's an illusion and people are liars on top of that. Like you know, we're in a matrix, you know, Maya illusion. The third dimensional reality is illusionary of what we really are as a soul. So it's all a lie. You know, what we see is a lie. Like it's a deception. Like it's, you know, and on an atomic level even, right? You think about all the atoms that put together your bed and your door and your window. I'm just looking at things in my room. You know, it's all an illusion, right? Just like it would be if you were playing a video game. It looks like something because your eyes are, you know, is an illusion of the third dimensional reality is an illusion of what really is, right? Which is etheric, you know, energy and beings and God, and you know ultimately when you get down to the base level, it's the essence of pure love, which is God. The feeling of love, which is God, created all these things, these different layers, each one more gross than the original layer. And the grosser the thing is, the more of a deception it is, right? And you can break down things on an atomic level, subatomic level, but then you can get into the etheric level that's not measurable by science, right? So there's all that shit. But, you know, in terms of media and people, we're all lying, making shit up, you know, so it's all distorted. And so, you know, there's all of that. But in terms of this illusion that we call Earth and this, you know, the politics and the system, we know that white people came from a European area where they got less sunlight. You know, whatever happened for people, whatever genetic manipulation there is, I mean, there's a long history of human beings. But we know, you know, thousands of years ago, people with light skin lived in areas where there was more winter and less sunlight, and they had less pigmentation in their skin. And then people of color lived in these various other areas. Some of them brown, some of them black, right? In the areas where they would get more sun. And, you know, that was, you know, people in Africa were black. And a certain kind of black. Like the people in India are different kind of people than the people in Africa, and different than the Aboriginal people in Australia, different than the, you know, the red and brown people in Native American areas and some of these other places like Mongolia, Asian people. So there's these different, you know, makeups of what we call races, right? And dark black people lived in Africa, and South Africa particularly. It's the southernmost part of Africa. And there were, you know, no white people there. And white people went there and seized land with this process called colonization, which came from Britain and these other European countries, particularly Britain in this case. And they seized the land, and they took the land from black people using force, and they imposed their will and exploited the resources and the people there. I'm sure there's slave trade and wherever there, I don't know, you know, specific African countries that had slave trade, but the people were basically slaves there when the British took over. And then there was a long history of a minority of white people ruling the black people in a very brutal way. And there was uprisings and discontent, and then the apartheid fell, and now they have whatever mess is left. You know, when Ernie Els, the golfer, which I covered yesterday, said, you know, two wrongs don't make it right. You know, we know how bad the apartheid was, but killing white people doesn't make it right. You know, and Trump was agreeing with that. Well, yeah, but you can't fucking, like, as a race of people. Ernie Els is a rich golfer coming from a rich family. And, you know, he comes out, he's saying these things as somebody who grew up in country clubs and with privilege. You know, these people are behind electric fences, which I told my story of this kid in Barbados, and they were saying the same thing. This other golfer said his family farm is behind an electric fence, and, you know, they have security and protection and machine guns and shit like that, right? And, you know, these people are pissed off the black people from systemic abuse that's been horrible for them for a number of years. And now they are pissed off, some of them, at white people and the power structure. And their reaction's their reaction, right? If you go beat the shit out of people for a long time and bully them and then go, hey, you know, we don't do that anymore, and it's like, you guys just get over it. Well, maybe they get over it, maybe they don't, right? Like, that's life. When you are, you know, when you're in the power position, you abuse your power, and then you're no longer in the power position. You're like, why can't we all just get along? Right? You know, and it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but maybe they don't want to do that. So I'm not justifying anything that's going on one way or another. I'm just saying that that's historically what's happened there in terms of the illusion that we live in. That's the, you know, it's not just the official story, but it's reality to whatever extent. And so, you know, for Trump to come in there and say the things he's saying shows you that he's not only concerned for just white people more than he's racist, but also it's elitism, right? He's really concerned about really wealthy people, wealthy plantation owners, farmers that are descendants from the, you know, royal British government, you know, house of these, you know, these wealthy people that came in, many of them lords or whatever they were, dukes and duchesses and, you know, all these things, Duchess of Sucksticks and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so, you know, that's what's up, right? That's what's happened there. And, you know, for him to come in and be, you know, just like this is a genocide and be outraged by it, it's almost like he's believing what his followers are telling him, that he is supposed to stand up for white people. And then he always is going to stand up for rich people. You know, the Qataris who gave him a jet, he's not going to bring them in and talk about any abuse they're doing. And they're much more abusive. Like, those are very, you know, abusive countries and shit. I mean, very restrictive and just, you know, to their own people. But, he, you know, as long as somebody's a Trumper, he's not going to say shit about it. And so he brought this guy in under faulty information, embarrassed the shit out of himself whilst trying to embarrass this guy. And then he gets fact-checked, and his press secretary tries to use him, gets angry, uses emotional manipulation, and tries to claim something that's, you know, that these grave sites, these freaking crosses are grave sites on the side of the road is just stupid. Like, the guy's a moron, he's an idiot. And he's, you know, he's elitist. He's the most elitist person because he's an elitist wannabe. Like, he's kind of in the club, but not really. And now he's pushing for, he's in a billionaire club. But, you know, and he's a president, but he's, you know, like, at this point, he's like a bottom feeder in the elitist clubs, even as president and as a billionaire. And, you know, he's not respected because of his dopiness, but they're using him to push this agenda that would bring down the American lifestyle and the rest of it. All right, let's move to this next thing here. Okay, so I was trying to find a compilation of Trump saying this, but here it is.
One of the provisions in the One Big Beautiful Bill, as I said, this is a very pro-family piece of legislation.
Okay, so the Big Beautiful Bill. Trump is calling this the Big Beautiful Bill. Okay, so right after that, my wife and I are rewatching the Netflix masterpiece called Adolescence. And it's, you know, it's kind of disturbing and intense. I watched it on my own, and then I was like, I want her to see it, and I waited a couple months, and then we're watching it now. And she dozed off a little bit, and I turned the news. I just turned, you know, I was going to watch the basketball game, wasn't on yet. So I turned this on, and, you know, Aaron Burnett is able now to do, like, real news. Again, because of financial stuff that she covers. I guess she covers financial stuff. But they're all able to do this. And CNN has become real news again, which I've covered in other videos, because Trump is actually making it so they can just tell the truth about Trump, and they don't have to bullshit and make things up. And they still do. But, in regards to Trump, they don't have to. The idea of that people have Trumpers, that this Trump derangement syndrome is incorrect, because you don't need that anymore. Because their obsession with Trump, they now get to say, we were right all along. Because Trump's doing, even worse than anybody imagined. I don't think they thought Trump was going to go full Trump. And no one knew what Trump was going to do. Because Trump says a lot of shit and oftentimes doesn't do any of it, right? Like, during his first run for presidency, he cultivated encouraged people to say, lock her up. He went so far as to say to her in a debate, because you'd be in jail. And then after the campaign, he said, no, they were chanting lock her up after he won and he was president, and he was doing a victory tour. They were chanting lock her up, and he said, no, that played well during the election, but we're not going to lock her up. And then he came out after he was prosecuted and said that he could have locked Hillary up, but he didn't weigh that he said that she was a criminal and committed crimes, but he didn't want to pursue it, even though it isn't his job to tell the Justice Department who to go after. But he should have told them to go after her, because he promised his people to go after her, right? And then he said, and I've showed you these clips and they're out there. He said he didn't want to lock her up because she's a former president, former first lady, president's wife, and secretary of state, and would look really bad. And it would be, it would be a black guy in America. So, because she was part of the club, right? And so he said he wanted to lock her up to his dopey people that followed him. But then he said, no, that was before. And then later on he said, I could have locked her up, and maybe I shouldn't. I should have. Because he was basically saying, when they convicted him of crimes and he was being sued in 2000, post the last 4 years before he was reelected, he was trying to say, I didn't violate the covenant that we shall not, thou shalt not lock up thy own. You should not lock up other rich, powerful people and former politicians. Like, you might talk shit about them like you're going to lock them up, but you never do. And they were doing it to him. And he was like, look, they're breaking the rule. And so he's showing that he's an elitist, right? And so here's the other piece. So this thing happened.
This moment, hosting what is being billed as, quote, the most exclusive invitation in the world. Well, what is that, you may ask? It is a private dinner for 220 of the biggest backers of Trump's own private cryptocurrency. These are investors, many of them from outside the United States. They've forked out a lot of money to Trump in order to have the chance for tonight's face-to-face with the President of the United States.
So they're buying access, right? This was what Hunter Biden sold for Joe Biden, right? This is to foreign people like Ukraine. So this is the shit that he was talking about when they talked about Hunter Biden. He's selling access, and it's personal profit. This has nothing to do with the American government. He's not getting a jet plane for the Air Force. He's making money on his own crypto scam.
States. Just before arriving, Trump posted, heading to the crypto dinner. A sit-down that has been advertised on a website. Let's just show you this website. It is fitting for one of those as seen on TV products.
Look at this thing here. Look at the picture of him. Like, this is hilarious, this website.
As opposed to a dinner with the president. I mean, there's the AI-generated images of Trump that you can see on the website. We're going to show you. You can go check it out yourself, though. It's quite fascinating. Multiple register now buttons in case you miss it. Confetti. There's a silhouette of you shaking
up here. That's you. You shaking Trump's hand.
And then there's more. There's a, quote, exclusive bonus, which reads, for the top 25 coin holders, you are invited to an exclusive reception before dinner with your favorite president. Plus, we have separately arranged arranged for a special VIP tour for you. So make sure you stay in town. All right, a special VIP tour, but to where? So when this contest was first announced, that exclusive bonus actually read a little differently. It was specific. When we found the archived version of the site from back in April. So when you go there, you can see where this mystery tour was. Originally, they said, we have separately by us arranged for a special VIP White House tour for you. Now, Why is that significant? Because that initial statement and phrasing makes the obvious clear. There is no separating a president from the presidency. There is no this is personal and something else isn't. The impression of a presidency for sale is bad for America. And now tonight, the White House, maybe no surprise, is quickly trying to shut down the perception that this could have anything to do with Trump profiting off the presidency.
The dinner tonight, the president is attending it in his personal time. It is not a White House dinner. It's not taking place here at the White House.
Okay, so this is getting worse with the Barbie truth. I'll show you. We'll continue this on in a second. But you understand that when he's giving tours of the White House and he's there because he's the president, like if he did this crypto coin and he lost to Joe Biden, it would be completely different. He would not be able to generate the kind of money. Like everybody gets that. He's generating a lot of money for his own personal crypto coin. And more than just his. We'll get into that. They showed this here more. Which is, selling access and profiting off of your position. And you really can't give people a private tour of the White House and claim this is your personal thing. Right? It's like you're selling something, like let's say you're CEO of a company. And you're selling something, you're saying, this has nothing to do with me being CEO of the company. But, we can go to the CEO, we can go to one of my, our headquarters, and you can tour the headquarters with me, in my capacity as CEO, right? So, it's clear that he's using the presidency to make coin, which I've said before. Like he's one of the best persons, probably the best one ever at marketing. His business ability is this. He's great at selling himself. He's great at bullshitting people and getting them to buy into Trump and selling his brand. So he created a good brand in Trump. That's a positive. And he's good at selling that brand. And then he's good at squeezing out as much profit as possible and finding loopholes in laws and pushing those loopholes in laws to benefit in a maximum way. When he was on The Apprentice, for example, he was able to negotiate the deal when they said, all right, what do you want to be on The Apprentice? He said, when we do these infomercials, these projects, I want the money from the project. And so they would pay him, the infomercial profit. Like he didn't get paid as an actor, as a person in the reality show, but he got all the money from those events, and that he was able to restock his dwindling, empire that had gone south because of the number of bankruptcies. So he's made some, good moves as a business guy, but mostly he sucks, right? He sucks he's been bankrupt so many times. He's made so many bad decisions, and he's just not good at life. Like he's just not thoughtful. He's just too isolated and too uncurious and too stupid to do the rest of those things. But his ability to bullshit, he just seems to be lucky. He just falls backwards into successful things that he has nothing, he fails upwards, right? He's one of those people that fails upwards. So he's like Kamala Harris. She failed upwards. It's amazing how this can happen, but in a Kali Yuga, it does.
Okay, that doesn't add up. The President of the United States holding a raffle to the top 25 holders of a meme coin that he is profiting from is not okay. Because Trump is personally getting money from the transaction fees on his meme coins, at least $1.3 million in fees in the weeks after Trump first announced this dinner, according to a crypto research firm, Chain Analysis.
Well, no, because he also owns coins. He bought some coins, when it first came out. Like they mined some coins, and he had coins, and they started selling them, and which drove the price up. And he had this contest to drive the price up, which is classic pump and dump, because he's made a lot more than his fees. Like I don't know how much she knows or they know over CNN how crypto works, but he's mined some coins before they made it public, right? He had coins to sell.
And according to the Wall Street Journal, they write, quote, he is forging ahead with the event over the objections of some of his own aides and lawyers who were initially shocked that he had agreed to it, according to people familiar with the event's planning. The Journal goes on to report Trump's own son, Eric Trump, was even taken aback when he heard about the dinner. Well, those who forked out...
because the guy just took a $400 million airplane. Like, Trump is not concerned about shit. He's just out there fucking grifting, taking shit. It's actually funny that he's just fucking in your face with it. And, like, this story is going nowhere. CNN put this one up, but they didn't put the other clip I just showed you of that former ambassador. There's some clips of people talking about Trump being wrong and how he hijacked this guy in South Africa. That story's going to disappear by the time you see this. I mean, in terms of the news media's coverage, this will disappear by tomorrow. Today's Friday, so it'll disappear by the weekend, and there'll be another story. It's like Trump went out and just bullshitted and lied and manipulated, and it was racist, and it was fucking totally unpresidential, and everything that he did at that fucking thing was a joke. He made shit up. He made mistakes. He just displayed himself like only concerned for rich white farmers, not the black people in South Africa who suffer from apartheid, not the brown people in the Middle East and Palestine that are being abused by the Israelis. All these things, right? And so almost slipped up. Almost said something I would have to edit out. and so this whole thing's a fucking mess, right? And he just gets away with it, and they don't have any way to do anything about it. So they just like these limp dick no nut reporters just come out and say stuff like Trump is totally selling influence right in front of people's faces. But he saw what Hunter Biden got away with and Joe Biden, and he knew he could just fucking do it. Like he has the Senate and the Congress and whatever else he needs. The Supreme Court says he's never going to be guilty of anything. President can do anything. He's taken free jets, like the most luxurious jet in the fucking world, a luxury jet from a very despicable country, and in terms of their human rights abuses. He's just flat out taking jets and selling fucking meme coins right in your fucking face, and you can't do shit about it. Like there's nothing to do. Maybe they can impeach him again, and that probably won't go anywhere. I mean, it's just hilarious. Like this part's hilarious, but of course, it's really bad.
Millions did so they could meet the president. They could get a direct line to Trump's ear. That sort of access is priceless. And something else the White House said today while defending this over-the-top dinner caught our attention. Listen to this.
This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly. And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life. He has sacrificed a lot to be here.
Okay, that fucking bullshit fake ketchup gate. Think about how, I don't know who else is saying this. People can list other truthers that are calling, out on ketchup gate. But when it happened and right afterwards, people were saying I was the only one calling bullshit on the thing, the ketchup gate. Let's go back here. But her, she's so fucking self-righteous and manipulative.
This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly. And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life. He has sacrificed a lot to be here.
We will never make light of the horrific assassination attempt against President Trump.
Yeah, of course you wouldn't. Because that would mean you'd have to say that every other thing is fake, right? And you'd have to implicate the Secret Service fucking actors or the fucking weird-ass shit that they did.
But the claim that Trump has, quote, lost his wealth stands out because it is false. He has made a lot. So today we reached out to Forbes' Dan Alexander because he tracks Trump's wealth. He's a frequent guest on this show. He does the numbers for Forbes, and he ran the numbers. He said since the time of Trump's first term ended in 2021, so from the end of 2021 till now, he has more than doubled his net.
So they already showed this before, but we all know this because of Truth Social. So that's really the whole debacle that happened with them deplatforming him. He's made $1 billion on that. He's made billions of dollars on crypto.
Net worth to about $5.4 billion. Now, that's the latest Forbes analysis. That is a doubling of net worth to $5.4 billion. That's the facts. And according to Bloomberg, the Trump family made roughly $1 billion in paper gains alone from, you guessed it, crypto. Trump has a coin. The First Lady has a coin. Eric Trump and the son of Special Envoy Steve Witkoff announced a $2 billion crypto deal in Dubai. It certainly sounds like Trump is doing exactly what he accused Hillary Clinton of doing in 2016.
Hillary Clinton has perfected the politics of personal profit.
He's definitely on Ozempic. And look at his teeth; they're all fucking fake. Look at his fucking fake ass teeth. I mean, it's like they've changed him. It's like he doesn't even exist. It's just they've changed the AI program to a different Trump, right? Like it's almost not the same guy, you know, this whole thing. You know, he's selling access. This is all the stuff. It's all the bad stuff. He's for elitist rich people, and you know everybody knows it, but the Trumpers, and like that's just sad. But they can't do anything but fucking whine about it, and they don't want to do anything. Like the news media isn't like fucking freaking out as he runs this country into the ground. Let's case in point. Let me go this other thing here. So you know it's kind of hilarious. Like they should be like freaking. You know how much they used to freak out. Oh, if Trump gets elected, it's the end of the world, and they were just constantly. You know that was real Trump derangement syndrome. Now he's elected. They got smiles on their faces. They have light back in their eyes. They're, oh my God, she's back. We can be real news again. It's like fucking nobody gives a shit. Like they're, you know, they know he's like destroying the country and the world, and they're all just like, you know, la di da di da di da. You know, it's just. So then there was this. Then this happened.
A critical meeting is underway at the White House. President Trump hosting members of the House Freedom Caucus who are still a no when it comes to the so-called Big Beautiful Bill to advance Trump's sweeping agenda. Those holdouts asking for more time and standing in the way of Trump's desire to see that bill passed tonight.
I don't think it can be done today. I mean, the runway.
Okay, so there's that part of it, right? But here it is here.
Right now, the Dow closing down now, as you see right here, more than 800 points. That's just shy of 2%. The market's concerned over estimates from the Congressional Budget Office that says that this bill will add $2.3 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years.
2.3, but it's actually $3 trillion.
Let's turn now to former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. He's got charts on the potential
Ratner. They got Ratner. It's Ratner's
impact of this huge legislation. Steve, good morning. So let's talk about the deficit.
How come every woman named Joy is miserable, but everyone named Ratner looks like a rat?
And what this House bill, if it does make its way through, if the Senate, which has said it's not going to vote, many Republicans for this, it's just too big. But if it does go through, what would it do to the deficit?
Yeah, as you can imagine, given what Ali just went through and all the lists of things that they're doing, the impact on the deficit is pretty significant. Let's just put some numbers on some of the cuts. First, the extension of the personal income tax reductions that were made during the 2017 bill and are set to expire at the end of this year, $2.2 trillion over 10 years, raising the standard deduction, $1.3 trillion, the child tax credit, $800 billion. And then you get into Trump's campaign promises, no tax on overtime, car loans, interest, and tips, $200 billion, increasing defense spending. This is his attempt to take Social Security taxes away from seniors so they don't have to pay them by giving them a special deduction. And then you get into the cuts, the student loan changes, the climate funds, and Medicaid, $700 billion of Medicaid cuts. So what does that do to the deficit? Here is the baseline deficit. So even without this tax bill, the deficit was essentially going to keep going up over the next 10 years, maybe come down a little bit at the very end, but essentially up. Then you add in the tax bill that we just talked about, including the fact that they've played the same gimmick they played in 2017, setting up some of these things to expire. And that would make the deficit impact higher, but not as high as if you made all this stuff permanent. The record of Congress, stuff almost always gets made permanent. And so somewhere along in here, they will make this permanent.
All right, so 10-year deficit additions would be $3.1 trillion added in 10 years to the already expanding deficit, right? So it add another $3 trillion to the $2 trillion a year. Or is it $3 trillion a year? It's one of those things. It's $3 trillion a year because they have $700 trillion in spending and $1 trillion in interest, and they'll have $500 trillion in tax revenue. But he's also going to take down tax revenue. So if it was permanent, it'd be $1 trillion. And so the tax revenue is how you pay your bills. Like that's our income, which I show you when I show the let's go to the clock here. Okay, so remember past summer, there was some guy had a video where he was celebrating, and if I can find it, I'll show you after this. He was celebrating that he was a Republican who was, being sarcastic and celebrating that we did it. We went over $35 trillion in debt. It might have even been 30, but it was 30 was over 2 years ago, but I think it was, these things, right? And this is obviously some sort of Republican site or something because they're putting Doge in here now. There's a Doge clock. But, you see this is accumulating right here. This is our income here, $5 trillion. But if Trump gets all these tax cuts passed, it'll be less money, right? And what Elon Musk said, which is something that we didn't know, I guess you could figure it out from the numbers, is that the budget is $7 trillion plus another $1 trillion in interest rate, right? So this is the interest. It's over $1 trillion and counting. And so this is, the interest on the national debt. And so what Elon said was that we're paying $8 trillion out every year, and our income, which he didn't say, is $5 trillion. And Trump wants to reduce the income through having tax cuts, which is, they seem to benefit us, but they're not going to cut the budget significantly enough. He also wants to raise the level of military spending. That's another thing that he's doing. And so here are some of the numbers. This is the credit card debt here. Our total U.S. debt is over $100 trillion. Our GDP every year, our gross national product is only $20 trillion. So there's all that shit, right? And there's just not enough. There's $4 trillion in savings. I'm not sure, what people have in terms of money. Here's the big number, though, here. That there's the credit default swaps, right, the derivatives market. And that's over $728 trillion. And then this comes and goes. It's always between 6 and 7. And this is debt that is, all this debt is, in one way or another, wealth for somebody, right? It's a liability for America, but it's an asset for the institutions that hold the American debt, right? That they say we have this promise to pay. And all this, if you got rid of all this debt, which you can't, but if you did, it would decrease the wealth by $2 quadrillion, right? $728 trillion and all this other debt here, we're close to I think America's in $2 quadrillion worth of debt. And there's only, in terms of printed currency, it's something like $5 or $20 trillion of printed money out there. So the majority of wealth is IOUs and debt and these things. And so if you got rid of the debt, you get rid of the wealth, which is crazy. And you can't get rid of the debt anyway. So we're fucked. There used to be unfunded liabilities, and they got rid of that, and I don't know why, because this is a Republican thing. They used to say unfunded liabilities, which is Social Security and Medicaid and other things, and that was $128 trillion. So that's where you get the quadrillion, or more. They don't even have that as part of the budget. And so, that's how fucked we are, right? We don't, there's no way to, you can't pay off the debt. If you did, that's all your wealth. That's all this stuff that's out there that people consider wealth, the stupid Doge clock here. And so they were never going to get rid of enough of the budget and the spending to affect the national debt. This one. But this isn't even the big one. It's all of this stuff. Look at all the red on here. All the red is fucking us, right? And all the red is bad. Like there's $1 trillion in state debt and, all these things. That's just getting worse. And so there's no way to turn this around. And it can't be turned around because debt is wealth. And if you understand that there's this money as debt, there's these good cartoon videos that explain all these things, in a very simplistic form in other places. But if you don't understand it's a monopoly game, that money has no value, we have a fiat currency and, all these things. And we have a usury system, and the usury system usually never lasts this long, and it never goes this big. It's usually to a small community. It's never global. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's demonic, and there's no way to fix it because this is what it does, right? Okay, here's a video here.
Mr. Speaker, and to my friend from Missouri, thank you. Actually, sometimes I come behind these microphones and often what I want to share, what I need to share, it's my therapy, is a bit dour. And it's sometimes fun to listen to someone that actually has happy and joyous. All right, now that the uplifting portion of this program is over, let's get to the facts. Mr. Speaker, or now Madam Speaker Pro Tem, you see the number, 35 trillion. Guess when we hit it? We should be very, very excited and proud of ourselves. We did something that so many economists said we would never get to this quick. My math says this coming Friday, 3 p.m., the United States gross debt will cross over 35 trillion.
So this was July 25th. So, 8 months ago.
Now understand, that's not the way Europeans calculate our debt, which they calculate our debt dramatically higher because of our obligated unfunded liabilities. But you're going to watch the...
Yeah, so the unfunded liabilities of Social Security and Medicaid. So those are things we've promised, and other things. It's like 120 extra $1 trillion in debt. That's for the unfunded liabilities. So, this is like best case scenario. It's now at basically $37 trillion. It's going to hit 40. I mean, at what point do you realize, oh yeah, there's no way? And Elon Musk said it. Like, they need to get the most that they could do was $1 trillion of Doge, and they're not even close to that. Elon's quit, which I'll get into my next video. I have a whole bunch of stuff there that I never got to. And so this guy's, celebrating the $35 trillion. But, there's no paying it. So what happens? We default on the debt. What happens? What are the possible outcomes? Well, your lifestyle's gone. Like that's a given, right? No matter what else happens, your lifestyle's gone. America being the world's economic power, all those things, right? They're going to have to auction off parts of America, whatever it is. And what does this do to the global economy? It's just complete collapse or, something resembling a complete collapse, right? Some variation of that. There's two more things to get to here.
Start this hour with two social media posts from President Trump. Came out a few hours ago and are rattling the markets before the opening bell. Trump now threatening 25% tariffs on Apple for manufacturing its iPhones overseas. He's also recommending...
So he wants to screw Apple over because they can't manufacture stuff here. And he wants to put 25% on their fucking company. Like, I know that's not legal. It's certainly not good business. So, think about that. I've long ago informed Tim Cook of Apple that I expected their iPhones that will be sold in the United States of America will be manufactured and built in the United States, not India or any other place. If that's the case, a tariff at least 25% must be paid by Apple to the U.S. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He's a fucking child. He doesn't think about the consequences to that or any of the other aspects of it. No matter what, you think that the 25% tariff isn't going to be paid by you, the Apple consumer, the people with iPhones, or if he manufactures them in America, they're going to go up by 3 times. And so, either way, there's going to be lawsuits and all kinds of shit, right? And, it's just a child. The European Union, which was formed for the primary purpose of taking advantage of the United States on trade, not true, has been very difficult to deal with. There are powerful trade barriers, VAT taxes, ridiculous corporate penalties, non-monetary trade barriers, monetary manipulations, unfair and unjust lawsuits against American companies, like Apple, which you just mentioned, and more have led to a trade deficit with the U.S. of more than $25 trillion, $250 billion a year. Trillion? Who's that trillion? That's million. So I think he meant more than that. $250 million a year. It's not that much. I think he meant to say something else there. Number which is unacceptable. Our discussions with them are going nowhere. Therefore, I'm recommending a straight 50% tariff on European Union starting on June 1st, 2025. There's no tariff if the product is built or manufactured in the United States. Thank you for this attention to this matter. You know, he's imploding. You know, he's just you can't do shit where you get upset by something and then you tweet in the middle of the fucking night that well, this is in the morning. He was up at 7 a.m. Well, you know, this is what happened this morning, today. You just can't get upset about something and then just start writing tweets about it. And that's just not a way to conduct yourself as a businessman and or president in this case. He's just a child.
Recommending a straight 50% tariff on the European Union starting on June 1st. That's a week from Sunday.
Look at this picture.
After complaining the trade negotiations with the EU have...
Yeah, this is so performative. Like, this is the message he's sending to, you know, everybody else is like, well, this is fucking scary. Except these right-wing fake fucking patriots who are, you know, buying into his bullshit that he's selling to them specifically. They have no idea he's fucking them over because of everything that he's doing. Their lifestyle, I mean, he's destroying what he says, make America great again. The things that they think that are great, he's destroying.
Stalled. The reaction from Wall Street has been swift and negative, with Dow futures tumbling nearly 500 points, while the S&P and NASDAQ are seeing significant losses as well.
That's after it stumbled the other day because of his fucking beautiful big bill.
Mark Leibovich.
Big, beautiful bill.
It seems like President Trump can't leave well enough alone here. When he first declared these tariffs on his so-called...
Yeah, so, you know, this is fucking Trump. I just want to add this. Not that none of this matters. I'm editing. But, you know, if you're planning a business and you have a guy who gets impulsive and announces he's going to do, you know, 50% tariffs and he's going to reduce it to 10% tariffs or no tariffs at all, or he's using it as a negotiating tactic with the European Union, and who knows what he's trying to get out of Apple, and he's going back and forth and doing all this kind of bullshit, right? You know, it doesn't incentivize you to invest in America, which is one of Trump's big things, or do business. Like, you'd be better off just waiting things out until this guy settles down, or, you know, the Democrats take control of the House and the Senate in 2 years or whatever it is, right? Because, you know, if you don't know how to calculate, to use analytics, to do forecasts for your business, you know, and I'm like not a businessman. Like, the fact that I know this is, I mean, you know, Trump his big claim to fame is that he's a money guy, right? Like, all my friends took economics and business in college, most of them. You know, there was one of the biggest, majors and one of the most popular majors. And, you know, I didn't. Like, I have I mean, maybe it's part of my dyslexia, but also my personality. You know, I have a resistance to it. I couldn't even balance my checkbook in college. I had all these issues. I've talked about this in the past. But, you know, due to what I do here, I had to figure some of these things out, and just watching it and understand it, right? And if you want to have a business, you got to figure out, like, an economic forecast. You know, what's your market? What's your margins? You know, what are you likely to sell? How much does it cost to make your products? You know, how much is it going to cost for customer acquisition? And, you know, what's your price point? And is that price point reasonable? Are people able to pay it? And, you know, the economy can change to where people who would buy your item under one economy won't buy it under a recession, the first thing they're going to cut back on, right? You see this, like, you know, I wouldn't invest in Starbucks and shit like that right now because you can make coffee at home, right? And so, you know, and people just don't have the money, you know, don't have the disposable income anymore. And so with Trump being so arbitrary and impulsive and not thinking about these things, it would be hard to invest in any sort of a business right now. And Trump is supposed to be promoting business, right? He's just, you know, again, he's a chaos agent, and he's just arbitrary and random. He's just a random fuck, right? And so, you know, I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's like, it's totally screwed. Okay, so this guy, again, is totally gooling it up here.
Turning to politics now, the sweeping domestic policy bill that House Republicans narrowly passed yesterday is running into some fierce,
big, beautiful bill.
Early resistance over in the Senate. NBC News chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has the latest on the fight to advance President Trump's agenda.
A major victory for President Trump after his signature legislative package cleared a big hurdle, narrowly passing the House Speaker Mike Johnson, making good on a promise to pass the bill.
All right, here's the thing I think we want to listen to.
There's no way I'm going to vote for this bill in its current form.
Oh, wait, he might have said something earlier.
Spending enough.
We are stealing from our children and grandchildren, and that's why there's no way I'm going to vote for this bill in its current form.
So Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. He's a Republican senator who's not going to vote for it because he says we are stealing from our children. You know, whatever. Like now you're going to say it's too fucking late. Like there's no future for them. I mean, there's a great future spiritually, but the American future that patriots and Republicans love so much, and, you know, Trump supporters and Democrats and liberals too, you know, the lifestyle that we all enjoy, that part's over. And it's, you know, for the best because it's part of a, you know, you can't have both things. The lifestyle that we have, which is often, you know, the lifestyle hurts people. Wealth and, you know, lack of natural living is hurting everybody. So it's not like the lifestyle is good for us anyway. And lots of people are addicted to this, or they are, this or the other thing, and obesity and all the stuff that goes along with it. But in terms of that, you know, whatever that is that's bad for us, that we enjoy, it's gone. And, you know, what's going to replace it is up to us. But, you know, it's not really up to us. It's up to people in the future. It's going to take years to build something better. Like we'll absorb the system collapsing, which will take whatever amount of time. And then there'll be a different paradigm coming in. And the people that come in will, you know, future generations of ourselves, or, you know, what would be our grandchildren or great-grandchildren or whatever it is, people who are yet to be born. So our grandchildren's grandchildren, like they might make something better of the world, but this is, you know, what we enjoy and what we believe to be our life is, you know, like something that we can't live without. Our lifestyle is gone. Like it's gone. Like just fucking admit it. So while I was doing the video that's up today about Trump and the South African president, yesterday's video. Today's Friday, the 23rd. Yesterday the video's up today, but I made it yesterday. I was going to take these things that were being said about the big beautiful bill, and this piece right here with Christy Dome, and put them in, you know, to make Trump even look stupider. But I didn't need to do that. That video was epic enough as it was. Trump's failures, I mean, just, you know. And it's just, I mean, it's whatever day that happened, Tuesday. It's just another day in Trump land in America, because it doesn't matter about Trump. You know, Biden, I mean, I guess the View women are upset about Joe Biden. I haven't even got a chance to look that up. They're upset about the Joe Biden, Jake Tapper book. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So this happened here.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Absolutely.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
This guy. I mean, again, another person who's just an absolute scumbag gets to ask like a real question here.
For being here, Madam Secretary.
I mean, he's involved with all kinds of bad shit, like emotional healing, learning stuff, getting into kids' internal world in schools, you know, which is a form of indoctrination, like real Illuminati shit. He's from Connecticut. And he gets to, you know, ask this dope some real questions.
I'm sure you've seen the recent reports that your agency is going to sponsor a reality show, TV show, in which immigrants would compete for U.S. citizenship. Is DHS seriously vetting a reality show for immigrants to obtain U.S. citizenship? Your spokesperson is quoted in the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to ask that article be in the record, Mr. Chairman, if there's no objection, saying that, quote, It's in the very beginning stages of that vetting process. Each proposal.
But it's going to be very tasteful. It's really going to be very tasteful.
Proposal undergoes a thorough vetting process prior to denial or approval.
Sir, we have no knowledge of a reality show. There may have been something submitted to the department, but I did not know
So
anything
you
about
can
this
confirm that
reality
you're not
show.
considering
Until the reporter reached out, we told him we have no knowledge of it. We don't know what he's talking about, and they still printed wrong information. So that
spokesperson
article.
Yeah, okay, but you're not trustworthy. You know, I don't know whether they did or didn't. But, you know, if you went up to Trump and said, what if, hey, Mr. President, what if we had a reality show, which Trump loves, you know, because that made his career, The Apprentice. What if we had a reality show where we had immigrants compete for citizenship? Yes, let's do it. Like, totally, Trump would totally do that. And so it's not like it's that ridiculous for this administration. And she's either telling the truth or not, but it's completely believable. And at least the idea was floated around because one of her officials mentioned it, right? And so, you know, they do stupid shit, and they're just that guy. They're this kind of, you know, Trump is that guy. He's the kind of person that would do that thing. And, you know, I mean, it's so tasteful, though. We do it in such a tasteful way, like a nice way. You know, we're going to make it where they have to compete to, like, crawl under and over walls, and we're going to, you know, make them, you know, do some sort of menial labor, like pick fruit and shit, and, you know, like all the things, do migrant labor, and we're going to, you know, all these things. We're just going to test them out, see who, you know, who would be best suited to come in and perform these jobs that no Americans want to do, right? The whole thing is just, you know, it's obscene. It's just obscene, the whole Trump administration. So let me wrap this one up here. Only spiritual, and, you know, I wanted to, before I do the ending here, you know, there's stuff I'm not getting to. Like, I've had these things up with Elon Musk. I had to do a follow-up because this stuff came out about Trump lying, which of course he was. Like, he know what the fuck he's talking about. And yet, you know, I have so many tabs open every day. After a while, I just click out of some because I'm like, I'm just not going to get to this. You know, every day there's something, even on the weekends. You know, I wanted to have some days where I do other things. Like, it just, you know, I could do that anyway because it doesn't matter. It's not like, you know, I mean, to you all, it's whatever it is. I enjoy making the videos, but, you know, people will listen. You know, it's an ever shrinking audience here. And so, you know, which is, I mean, I don't see the audience, so I don't know, but, you know, in terms of the YouTube numbers, you know, and I could take some days off and it wouldn't be all that significant to me. And, you know, but I see things and I'm like, oh, I got to say something about this. Like, even if I want to do like outdoor work or just, you know, get other stuff done. I want to give video for Apocalypse Now. I would be doing a video a week there and taking a day off here. Like, that would be a good thing on the other channel, and then reminding people to come over here too. But, like, I just, you know, it's so much stuff happen every day. And it's all insignificant because it's a 2-day story. And then it moves on to more shit. Like, it's just everything's, you know, it's almost like a, you know, a bad dream where nothing is really significant, but, you know, everything's really weird. Anyways, that's that. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.